This program is sponsored by Andersen Wealth Management. Welcome to Wise Money with Michael Andersen. Michael and the team at Andersen Wealth Management focus on helping you plan for your ideal retirement. Michael strives to understand all of your financial needs to help guide you on the path to your retirement goals. This is Wise Money.
Welcome everyone, I'm Amy Sharp. Joining me, Michael Andersen, founder of Andersen Wealth Management, right here on the Eastern Shore. Think you can handle the truth when it comes to your retirement? There are 4 financial realities you just can't ignore. And Michael says the sooner you prepare for them, the better your retirement can be. We'll tell you what those 4 realities are. And later, what's the one big thing many people overlook when it comes to retirement planning? We'll tell you what it is to help you avoid making a retirement mistake. Plus, in this week's Financial Compass, Michael explains what you can learn about retirement from building a house. Thank you, Michael, for joining me again.
My pleasure. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Can you handle the truth? I don't know if I can say it. That was a little intense, wasn't it?
That was a great movie, a great scene, wasn't it? When
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson got all fired up and Tom Cruise was questioning him.
From A Few Good Men, and you can just see the intensity and the fire in his face. He meant business, didn't he?
He certainly did. That was incredible. A great film.
Well, we're going to come across a little easier on everyone today. I know that you don't have that same fire when you share this information, but you have the same passion behind it. We're going to talk about those 4 financial realities that we really need to take into account when it comes to making sure that we have a successful retirement. So let's start at the beginning. Give us the first one.
You betcha. So the first one, and something a lot of people haven't really thought about, is they might live a really long time. When we're looking at statistics, because everybody's life is going to be different, but you look at statistics for a married couple age 65, there's a better than 50% chance one of them will live to 95. And when you take it even further, the fastest growing age group of Americans in percentage terms is Americans who are over the age of 100. Well, that's a big change. You see, when we look back 50 or 60 years, people retired and they lived for a few years and they passed away. Now we think a lot of people are going to spend as much or maybe even more time in retirement than they spent in their primary careers, which means the money that they have in a pensionless era, that money has to last a long but unknown period of time.
Yeah, and nobody knows the answer to that question. We don't know how long we'll live, so preparation and planning is key for sure.
You're absolutely right.
All right, let's go with the second financial reality that we need to keep in mind when it comes to retirement planning.
That, of course, is inflation, and it's coupled with the first one. Over a short period of time, a modest rise in the price of goods and services might not be a big deal. But when you're looking at a potential very long period of time, inflation can have a very big impact on how you live your life. Because if you think about it, if you retire at age 65 and you spend 30 years in retirement, that's 30 years of things going up in price, 30 years of groceries going up, of gasoline going up, utilities going up. Now, not everything goes up. Big box TVs, for example, seem to go down in price. I know we bought one just the other day for our house, and I went to the Sam's Club, and now it's even cheaper. And it's only been a couple of months, I guess. So things do sometimes come down, but overall things go up in price. And if your income is fixed in retirement or otherwise not growing, you've got to find a way to offset inflation. And that's where we want to look at inflation adjusting sources of income and asset investments.
Yeah, and I think inflation creeps up on a lot of us. We don't think that things are going to change in price until we get to the store and it hits us in the face that way.
You're exactly right. As we've talked about before, I'm the principal grocery store shopper in our family. And my kids, we have 3 kids, they eat basically like 4 things. So we're constantly buying the same stuff. And I've noticed when I go to the supermarket, it used to be like $120 to fill the cart. Now we're pushing up on $150, but we're buying the same stuff, which tells me inflation is definitely here.
Yeah, good advice. All right, we are now to number 3, and this one's something that a lot of people maybe tend to put off or not think about as well.
Yeah, it's kind of an unpleasant subject. Nobody wants to think about long-term care, which is when you receive assistance performing those activities of daily living. See, long-term care is not medical care. It's not like you get sick and you get better. Long-term care is generally, as we get older, we need help doing things like getting out of bed, getting dressed, cooking your food, going to the bathroom. And when you couple that with longevity, it's increasingly likely that people are going to need some type of long-term care. Now, I know when I say the words long-term care, if I go into a seminar and say that, people are going to be like, oh my gosh, he's talking about being in a nursing home. Maybe, but it just means people helping each other out. A lot of long-term care is delivered by spouses caring for each other. Maybe the kids come in, a church group, a neighbor. It's not necessarily facility-based care, but if you do go into a situation where you're paying someone to help you out, maybe you go to assisted living or to a nursing home at some point, that's pretty expensive and it's got to be paid for, and it's something that a lot of people overlook. Now, when we look at long-term care planning in my office, there are certain financial products that are really designed to cover long-term care costs. Then there are other financial products that you might be able to use in ways you didn't really think of. That's where having a fiduciary on your side who can look at the pros and cons of everything could be really, really helpful.
Okay, we've got one more to cover here before the end of our segment. What's our fourth one?
It's my favorite. It is taxes. Taxes, taxes, taxes. See, here's the thing about taxes. We can't really control them. I guess if we got elected to Congress, we could. But taxes are something that are going to be a part of life, especially for folks who are going to be living off a tax-deferred retirement account like a 401k or an IRA. You see, those are accounts in which when you take a withdrawal, or maybe you're mandated to take a withdrawal, it's exposed to the income tax, which is a tax that can ebb and flow in terms of the rates that apply. So you might have a nice sum of money saved up and feel really good about it, but part of that money belongs to Uncle Sam, and what we don't know, again, coupling this with longevity risk, is how those laws regarding taxation are going to change. But one thing that's not going to change is this. Every extra dollar that you send into the tax man is by its very definition a dollar you don't have to spend. So we want to try to do everything we can, within the letter of the law of course, to legally pay less in taxes, keep more of our hard-earned money so we can spend it on the things that matter to ourselves and to our family.
Yeah, 4 financial realities. It seems like there are more, I'm sure, but those are the big ones, and it's good to get them out of the way and know upfront what you're facing. Thank you so much, Michael. Up next, what's the one thing many people get wrong when it comes to retirement planning? The answer is straight ahead. And later, in this week's Financial Compass, Michael talks about building your financial house. But first, here's how you can contact Michael and the team at Andersen Wealth Management. Stay tuned.
There are some things you can't avoid, but you can avoid overpaying taxes in retirement. You may think your taxes will go down in retirement, but that's not always true. In fact, sometimes your tax liability could go up. We're offering a free guide to show how you may be able to pay fewer taxes in retirement. Learn how different retirement accounts are taxed and options to help make your retirement income more tax efficient, all in easy to understand terms. Download this free tax guide now to help keep what's yours and avoid overpaying taxes in retirement. You're watching Wise Money with Michael Andersen.
Thanks for tuning in today, Michael. Good to be back with you. This segment is interesting to me because we are talking about one big mistake that you say people make when it comes to retirement. Now, I find it a little hard to believe that there's just one, but this must be a big one and one that really needs to be focused in on if you're willing to spend a segment talking about it. And I think that's what we're going to hear now. Let's hear it.
Sure, I'd be glad to. So you're right, there are more than just one mistakes that we see people making, but one of the big ones has to do with a misunderstanding of just how much money they're going to be spending in retirement. A lot of people think that they're going to be spending so much less than when they were working, but in reality, what I've seen with many of the clients that we have is they spend as much in retirement as they spent when they were working, or they spend even more in many cases. And it's a big mistake when you're looking at cash flow plannings and calculations, because sometimes it could mean that you're going to be hitting those assets, hitting that 401k or that IRA for a greater withdrawal than you maybe had actually planned on doing.
Why do you think people have that mindset that I'm going to spend less in retirement? Where does that come from?
Well, it comes from people like me. We as financial advisors, are kind of trained or conditioned to say that people likely spend like 80% of their pre-retirement spending in retirement. Or maybe they look at their grandparents who may have been more frugal creatures of the Depression, and they just saw frugality in retirement. That's not, though, what I'm seeing with people today. I'm seeing that people are spending at least as much, in many cases, or even more, in retirement than they spent when they were working.
I don't want to run out of money when it comes to retirement, and I'm sure that's on the minds of so many people, depending on how I'm going to spend my money. I just don't want to run out of it. How do I make sure that my income lasts throughout retirement?
That's a terrific related question, and it's actually the number one fear that people have about retirement. We see it in surveys over and over and over that people are just concerned without pensions for many people today. What are they going to do if they wake up, they trot into the bathroom, look at themselves in the mirror and say, oh shoot, I don't have any more money today. That's going to be a really tough situation. Now, what tends to cause that is overspending on things that we are often dismissive about. Like, for example, if you were to go out to lunch, but instead of doing a quick $5 sandwich, you go out with some friends, you have a couple of drinks, you get an app, an entree, dessert, boom, even if you go to just like a chain restaurant, you've spent $75, $80 for two people. Do that a couple of times a week, that really can add up and can lead to that depletion scenario, and it's something we have to be careful about. Now, it's not to say you can't go out to eat and have a nice boozy lunch in retirement. After all, you are retired, but you have to consider the actual costs of things and maybe be a little more judicious in order to make sure that that risk of running out of money doesn't come to fruition.
Do your clients really, do you find that they really do stop and think about, these are the things I want to do in retirement, this is how I want to spend my time and ultimately my money? Or is it once I get on the doorstep of retirement, all of a sudden, oh my goodness, I haven't even considered this?
We see all of that. It's kind of funny when people come into my office, you'll get a husband and a wife and they come in and they've never talked about what they're going to do in retirement. They haven't even talked about when they're going to retire. They just both know that at some point as they get older, they're going to retire. For some people, that vision of retirement is to do absolutely nothing. I have clients of mine who have plenty of money saved. They sit at home all day and they do nothing, and they're okay with it. And I have other people who I'm living vicariously through because they're going all over the world. In fact, we took our family, we had a tremendous honor to take our family to tour Normandy a year or two ago. And I did it because one of my clients did it the year before, showed me all the pictures, told me all about it. I got to tell you, it still brings tears to my eyes to remember going to the American cemeteries there and just looking at all those crosses and stars of David there and how much those people gave. But yeah, I got to experience that for myself. It was an amazing thing, but it was something that a client had actually had done, and I got to experience it.
Yeah, what a wonderful trip for your family and an experience for your children. And these are all the things that when we think about retirement, we want those great experiences. Like you said, some people don't, but I imagine when you have a couple sitting in your office and one has an idea that's over here and one has an idea that's completely different, what is that conversation like?
Oh, that's an easy one. Happy wife, happy life.
Oh, I like the way you think. That's very good. It can't be that easy, though.
Sometimes it is, but usually it's just, if people have been married a long time, they think along the same lines anyway. And it's just having those conversations and broaching those conversations is something people haven't done. They've been so focused on their careers and their families and all the stuff that's going on that they've never really sat down together and talked about it. And so in my office, people think, oh my gosh, there's going to be spreadsheets and charts and graphs. Yeah, there are, but there's also just conversations about people and values and the things that matter to you. And I think those qualitative conversations need to take place before the quantitative conversations do.
So before we come up against that one big mistake, it really does start with a good plan. Briefly tell us about that before we head to break.
It always does. So in order to make a retirement work, we have to do the math. And so first we qualitatively decide what that retirement vision is. Then we quantitatively figure out what it's going to cost. We apply to those costs the sources of income that are fixed, which could be Social Security, pensions, and annuities if you have them. And then if there's a deficit, we look at how much is going to come off the assets and if it's sustainable or not. It sounds like a lot, I know, using big terms and all that math, but really it's just a bunch of series of calculations. In my office, we do it for people so we can help bring them peace of mind and bring them to a confidence that they're going to hopefully be able to retire and stay retired.
All right, thanks so much, Michael. Great information. Straight ahead, building a house. What does that have to do with planning for retirement? That's next in this week's Financial Compass. And still to come, Michael answers some of your questions. First, here's how you can contact Michael and the team at Andersen Wealth Management. Stay with us.
Congratulations, you did it! You worked hard and saved for retirement, but now you have questions. Could my taxes increase? How will I cover my expenses? Will my income last? You need a strategy to help make sure your hard-earned money goes the distance in retirement. That's why we're offering this free guide designed to help you determine if your nest egg can withstand the challenges of a 21st century retirement. Longer lives, increasing healthcare costs, and taxes are just a few of the possible risks to your income. Get the guide today and take the first step to help your money last in retirement. You're watching Wise Money with Michael Andersen.
If you've ever built a house, you know it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. In today's Financial Compass, Michael explains how it's not much different than building a plan for retirement. Michael?
Thanks, Amy. Now it's time for our financial compass. And what I'd like to talk with you all about today is what it's like to build your own financial house. Now, I know many of the viewers of this show have built homes here on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, Delaware, or maybe in another part of the country. And you know, the first thing that you do is not go to the furniture store and pick out your furniture. The first thing you do is you don't go out and pick out your paint colors. No. The first thing you do is decide where you want your house to be. What is your long-term goal in terms of where you want to find yourself? So that might be in Florida, or it might be in Maine, or it might be right here on the Eastern Shore. But wherever that is, we've got to find that land, survey it out, and then hire the guys that bring the big trucks to dig out so we can start to lay the foundation. Well, similar things happen with your finances. We have to determine when you want to retire, where you want to retire, of course, what kind of lifestyle that you want to live. So when you're building a house, the guys are out there with the bulldozers and the backhoes, and they're digging out the land to lay the foundation. And then come the cement trucks, and they pour the foundation down there, because that's the most important part of the house. When it comes to retirement, of course, we're talking about income. You see, by definition, when you're no longer working, you don't have a paycheck coming in. But unfortunately, they do that. Well, here comes the foundation of retirement income. We're talking about Social Security. For many people, Social Security is the foundation of their retirement income. I've met with thousands and thousands of families here on Delmarva, and what I've seen for many of them is that Social Security is actually the single largest source of income. Now, that's not the only guaranteed source of income. Some people will be fortunate enough to have some pension income, or maybe they've purchased an annuity for another form of guaranteed income. These are all things that hopefully will pay you an income stream so that as the bills come in each month, you have the resources coming in to pay those bills. So we got to build that foundation first. Then we go up a level. We build the main story of our house. This is where we live. This is where we're going to spend a lot of time. And the first thing we build in that main level is we build the walls. See, in life, all sorts of things are going to happen financially. We're going to have market corrections. We're going to have interest rate spikes, inflation going crazy. All this stuff is going to happen. And we want to make sure that where we live, where we enjoy ourselves, our main level is going to be protected. So we build the walls. We put in there protections from those things so that we know whatever comes down the road, and we don't know what it's going to be, but whatever that is, that we're going to be okay. Let's keep going. Let's build the upstairs. For most people, that's where they sleep, and certainly if they have visitors, that's where they make the visitors sleep. This is where you're going to be looking at spending a lot of time. I mean, think about it. When you're sleeping, you're spending 25, 30, 35% of your day horizontal in bed. This is where you want to make sure that you have some very long-term investments to help protect you from long-term concerns. This is where we might want to look in a financial house, having investments perhaps in, to a certain degree, of course, in the stock market, in real estate, in things that maybe in the short term are a little volatile, but in the long term are important to us to protect us from those long-term concerns. And then for me, I think the most important part of any house is the roof. Now, you know what the weather's like in this part of the world. We get hurricanes, we get thunderstorms, we get tornadoes, we get snowstorms. Yuck. And rather than having all that stuff come down on us as we're sleeping, we want to have a roof over us. That's where in our financial house, we want to have measures of protections. We want to have various investments and strategies in place so that when these catastrophic things happen, we're going to be okay. Now, once your house is built, then you go to the furniture store and you pick out what couch you want, what chair you want. You go to the art store and you pick a painting and you get it all ready because you want to show your house off. In the real world, in the financial world, what we're going to want to do is then enjoy retirement. Once your financial house is built, we want to enjoy that. A lot of people have told me over the years that they do want to spend more time with family. They want to take their grandkids on a Disney cruise or go to Disney World. Maybe they themselves want to buy an RV and tour the country or fly to France and go on a river cruise and look at all those beautiful chateaux in the Loire Valley. Whatever it is, that's the whole purpose of creating a sound financial house, is to let you do the things that you want to do. Now, when it comes to building an actual house, of course, once you've built it, once you've got it totally decked out, then you want to call all your relatives and show it off. And so we want to make sure that we've got exactly what we need, a house strong enough to withstand short-term as well as long-term concerns. So building a financial house is pretty similar to building an actual house, and it's all about focusing on what matters to you and where you want to live your life and how you want to live your life. Amy, thank you very, very much. I'm going to toss this back to you, but ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like help from me and my team, please give us a call. We're only a phone call away.
Still to come, we'll hear directly from you in our Q&A section. But first, here's a special offer from Michael and the team at Andersen Wealth Management. Stay with us.
There are some things you can't avoid, but you can avoid overpaying taxes in retirement. You may think your taxes will go down in retirement, but that's not always true. In fact, sometimes your tax liability could go up. We're offering a free guide to show how you may be able to pay fewer taxes in retirement. Learn how different retirement accounts are taxed and options to help make your retirement income more tax efficient, all in easy to understand terms. Download this free tax guide now to help keep what's yours and avoid overpaying taxes in retirement. You know you want to retire. You might even know when you want to retire. What you don't know is what the world will look like. A short market drop, a crash, a recession. What if I told you these words don't have to change your retirement dreams? World events can impact your retirement, but thankfully, they don't have to. Can your retirement survive the unexpected? Visit the link to find your risk score to help you prepare for retirement when you're ready. It's time for you, not outside forces, to be in control of your retirement. Find your risk score so you can be ready no matter what comes next. You're watching Wise Money with Michael Andersen.
Now it's time to get to some of the questions you have for Michael today. Are you ready to get started on this?
Absolutely, let's go.
All right, here we go. Here's the first one. This is from Jim in Salisbury. My kids are both in their 20s and have been furloughed. They moved back in with us, so expenses are limited. How can I help them financially without jeopardizing our retirement? This is a question that a lot of people have come across lately, and you think about, you want to help your kids here. This is an obvious one. If you like your kids, hopefully, you want to help them out, but then to what extent?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's tough. You know, people do get furloughed. Unfortunately, the economy isn't always great. And to Jim in Salisbury, with the kids back at home, I would hope, that they're trying to get out as fast as possible. And I've seen this happen. And I've also seen where sometimes helping is hurting. But certainly we want to help our kids. Everybody does. You want them to be okay and independent. As a parent of 3 kids myself, my wife and I, one of our greatest goals with our children is to raise them so they can be independent, that they can survive on their own. But this also does create a situation where, and I know it's tough when you're in your 20s, but you want to have an emergency fund. So if something does happen, like getting furloughed, hopefully you would have the resources to maybe carry on without needing to move back in with your parents right away.
All right, thanks so much. Let's move to our next question. This one is from Gail in St. Michael's. I have my retirement savings in several different sources, but what I don't have is a firm understanding of whether I should tap into those different accounts once I retire. What's your advice?
Ooh, Gail from St. Michael's, that's a great question. It's also common. A lot of people who come into my office, they'll have money all over the place. And then sometimes they don't even know what they have. And part of our job as a fiduciary is to uncover all of the assets and then look at what are the needs off of those assets and how do we position the assets that you have in order to meet the needs. It might mean keeping the current investments that you have, or might mean making some changes if you haven't made the changes that you need to take as you go into retirement. But it does start with fact-finding, with understanding, with just knowing where things are and then doing the math in terms of how much is needed off of them. Don't worry though, Gail, if it's something that maybe you don't feel comfortable doing, that's something me and my team do all the time. We'd be glad to help you with it. St. Michael's is actually only about 8 miles from our office, so we'd be glad to get together with you and do that for you.
Yeah, just a convenient drive, and really just a good question to really focus on the fact that it really does help to have someone on your side, get everything in place and have a plan.
Exactly right. I think, going back to what my dad gave me as a piece of advice many years ago, that, people want you to sit on the same side of the table as them, not necessarily literally, but they want to feel that they have a trusted ally, not a salesperson who's just trying to sell you something and then he or she might move on, but a true fiduciary, someone who's going to put your interests first. You're exactly right.
Okay, here we go with another question. This is from Al in Ocean City. I'm retiring in the next 6 months. I've worked a long time, nearly 40 years. I'm looking forward to retirement, but one of my biggest concerns is taxes. Is there one main area I should focus on? And this is a perfect question for you. You love to cover this topic.
I certainly do, and I'm jealous that Al's going to retire in Ocean City, because that means every day he can go down to the boardwalk and get some boardwalk fries. It's definitely one of his favorite parts. But yeah, taxes is significant in retirement. in many ways, but today a lot of people don't have a pension. They have a retirement account in the form of like a 401k or an IRA, for which withdrawals will be taxed as income. And even if you don't want to take a withdrawal, at some point you have to, and that withdrawal will be taxed as income. And for many people, the income tax is the highest tax, or one of the highest taxes that they'll ever pay, and the creation of too much of that income could push Al into a higher tax bracket. So he's got to do the math and be careful and judicious about how much he takes out in a given tax year in order to keep his tax liability as low as possible.
All right, thanks so much. Ready for one more question?
You betcha.
All right, we've got time from Mary Lou in Federalsburg. She says, I work at a big employer in the area and I've been offered an early retirement. It's tough to know whether I should take a pension buyout or take the income from the pension. What are you recommending people like me do?
Well, Mary Lou, congratulations on getting the early buyout. If that's something you choose to do, it might bring for an early retirement. This is actually fairly common where people have a pension and they're given a choice essentially of taking a lump sum or taking payments off of the pension. It depends upon your goals and your situation as well as what they're offering. What I mean is, if you were to take the payments over your lifetime, most of the time that means when you pass away, there's nothing left. Whereas if you took the lump sum, if there's something in the account when you pass away, that could go to an heir or beneficiary. But you also have to look at the math of what they're offering in terms of the percentage that the income stream represents as a percentage of the lump sum, whether or not basically it's a good deal or not. And I've seen over the years some really terrific deals offered to people and some really lousy ones. It depends on what they're offering and your situation. So let's do the math here before we make that decision, because it's one that you usually can't get reversed once you make it.
Yeah, it's a case-by-case situation as well. You really have to sit down and look at everything that's out in front of you to see what works best.
You're exactly right. I got to bring out my abacus and do the math on that one.
Yeah, we'll let you do that. All right, thank you, Michael. If you have a question, you can visit the website. We might just use one of your questions on a future show. And don't hesitate to act on the information you've heard today. It never hurts to call, even if it's for a second opinion. Don't wait. Call now. For Michael and the team at Andersen Wealth Management, I'm Amy Sharp. Have a great day and an even better retirement.
This program was sponsored by Andersen Wealth Management. Michael Andersen, Registered Investment Advisors. Andersen Wealth Management is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Andersen Wealth Management and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. This show is solely for informational purposes. Past performance is no guarantee of future returns. Investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. No advice may be rendered by Andersen Wealth Management unless a client service agreement is in place. The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. This television show is a paid placement.